Hello, my name is Taylor Norris, and today I'm going to be talking about how I would teach kindergartners to count by tens, as well as count on in a number sequence instead of having to start by one. So to start my lesson, I would call my kindergartners to our class rug. I would explain to them that today we are going to learn how to count by tens. At this point in my classroom, the students would already know how to count by ones. It'd be something that they should be fluent in, something we would be working on all year. So they do have that prior knowledge. Before we fully dive into the lesson, I would go over the important vocabulary words that students would need to know. There would not be anything super strenuous. The main word that the students would need to learn or need to know for this lesson would be counting on. I would explain what counting on is and why it is important to know how to do that for the real world. Um, I would then pull up a number chart on the board, and as a class, we would count all the way from 1 to 100. I would make sure to point at each number as we count so that students can follow along. And if they do get lost, they can quickly find my finger and see which number that we are on. After we have counted by ones, I would then teach how we would count by tens. I would cover up the whole number chart except for the tens column. I'd ask the students if they could identify anything about the tens column. Hopefully someone identifies that it is simply our ones numbers with a zero attached to it. So it would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And I would count that for the students as well as discuss how they can remember it by covering up the zero and know it's just 1, 2, 3 with a zero attached to it. Providing the students with a number chart as well as showing them tactics to remember it, I think will be great. It will fit my visual learners as well as my learners who can just see it and know it. So after we go over that, I will tell the students that we're going to play a little game. I will have them put their heads to their knees to cover up their eyes so they cannot see. And I will go through and cover up with a sticky note random numbers on the number chart. So for instance, I could cover up the 8, 34, 71, and 88. So then I would have the students raise their hand if they know which number is missing from our number line, or number chart, pardon me. And so for instance, if the student identified that the 8 was the missing number, I would have the rest of the class do the me too signal if they agree, or the disagree signal if they do not agree. I would ask the student who identified the missing number to explain his or her thinking to the class. And if the student who initially identified the missing number is correct, and there's a student or two who are disagreeing, I'd ask them to explain their thinking to hopefully get them to realize their error. If a student initially identifies a number incorrectly, so say the 88 is covered up and they say 59 or something like that, I would ask the student to talk through why they think that is. And hopefully that student would be able to identify his or her error. And if not, I would have another student who disagreed and gave me the correct answer talk about why that answer is correct. This would allow me to see the students thinking and hopefully identify the errors and the struggles that they are having with this lesson. We would go through and do this a few times just so I can see where students are and see how they are comprehending this lesson as a whole. After that, I would pull the students back to their tables. I would pull for a small group and we would do essentially the same thing. There'd be a number friend and it would be a small table of numbers, and there would be missing numbers, and the students would use exo markers to fill in what the missing number is. That way I can really focus on the students who are struggling and who are not comprehending this lesson. I can try to identify what the error is and hopefully correct it. Students would also be working on an independent assessment form. For the assessment form, there would be a number chart, and the students would have to go through and color coordinate the assessment chart. I would already have it listed what colors needed to be what, just to make it a little more simpler. And so I can ensure that the students can break it apart successfully. So, for instance, the 1 through 10s row would need to be red. The 11 through 20s would be orange. 21 through 30 would be yellow, and so on and so forth. This would make it easier for the students to see, and it breaks it down kind of into smaller sections. Then at the bottom of the worksheet, students would have missing numbers to fill in. So, for instance, it would be a 10, 20 blank, 40 blank, blank, 70, and then so on. Um, the students would either use their number line to find what the missing number is and write it in that place, or students would memorize what the number would be. They'd say, "Oh, I remember that would be a 30 in the blank, or that would be a 50." And that would happen for a few different numbers. So, the next one could be 51 blank, 53 blank, um, just to test the students' knowledge and see where they're at and see where the error is. This assessment would not be for a grade. It would just be for me to see what I need to fix for my next lesson or what I need to clarify. It would just kind of be a base to introduce the students into what we are going to be learning. Um, so after the students have completed that worksheet, or if they come to my small group first, I would have the students who were done work on Splash Math or Splash Math, um, and they would be completing kind of the same thing that we were doing as a whole class. It would be missing numbers, or it was Splash Learn, I'm sorry. They would do Splash Learn, and it would have kind of the same thing that we were working on, like how to count by one, or how to count by tens, and then the missing numbers as well. I think this would be a wonderful lesson to do with kindergartners because it does provide them with a visual, a fun little game that keeps them interested, but it also gets across the learning, um, what we're trying to learn. And by not making the assessment a graded assessment, I think it's a great way for the teacher to see what needs to be fixed next time, or which students are going to need a little bit more help with this new concept. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.